These are the lesson notes for IB topic 11.3, the kidney, human health and physiology. The red book reading is pages 144 to 145. There will be a clicker quiz on this next class. So what does the kidney do? The best scientific term to describe what it does is excretion. Well, what is excretion? It's the removal of waste, metabolic waste, from the body. Now, is the kidney the only thing that helps the body with excretion? No. As you can see this picture here, this young boy is sweating, and that's an example of excretion. You ever hear of the expression sweating out your toxins? But the kidney specifically is excreting metabolic waste from catabolism and anabolism, specifically from hydrolysis and condensation of organic macromolecules. And the substance that it's going to excrete is called urea, which makes sense because it comes out of a fluid called the urine. Here's an overview of the structure, the parts and plumbing of the kidney organ. And we're going to start from the outside and work our way in. And this outermost area here, so I'm going to kind of outline this light colored area here, is called the cortex. Just like in the brain, the outer part of the brain is called the cerebral cortex. The outer part of the kidney is called the cortex of the kidney. Going further in, you're going to see these sort of shapes that look like sort of corn kernels or whatnot. And those are called the medulla. And finally, if you go all the way inside, you're going to get to past the cortex and past the medulla to this area here, which is called the pelvis. Make note of the fact that the kidney has what we call a renal artery, bringing oxygenated blood into it, and then a renal vein, bringing deoxygenated blood out to it, and there are many capillary beds throughout the kidney. The kidney itself is an organ, but within that organ are millions of functioning units called the nephron. Just like in your body, the cell is the basic unit of structure and function, and trillions of cells make up your body, the nephron is the basic unit of function for the kidney. It's right here. And there are millions of them per kidney. There are 2 kidneys per mammal. And what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in on the nephron here and talk a little bit about the different parts and what they do. So going below here, how would you describe the shape overall of the nephron? Looks to me like it's circular. And the circular external portion is called the Bowman's capsule. So it's like a hollow cup that's going to be holding this tangle of material inside. And those structures inside are called the glomerulus. Let's position these nephrons in the kidney. Over here, we're going to see a large picture of a kidney. And again, here is our cortex and our medulla and our pelvis. So if we're zooming in on the medulla, if you look at this white outline here, you can see this round area is the Bowman's capsule, and this whole thing is considered the nephron. What's going on here? Well, what's happening in this Bowman's capsule is that it's sort of a receiving area for a tremendous amount of blood pressure. So as the heart is pumping, the arteries that are leading into the Bowman's capsule are under tremendously high pressure, and they're kind of slamming the blood into that area. And then if you look at the tubules inside, which are called the glomerulus, Here, they're fenestrated, which means they have perforations or holes in them. And it's actually, you could almost see it kind of exaggerating and enlarging with every pump of blood that goes in there. And because it's under such high pressure, stuff is going to be blown out the sides of it through the permeability of the membrane, and it's going to come out of the blood vessel and into that Bowman's capsule. Why is that good? Because there are toxins in your blood. There are metabolic wastes in your blood. Yes, there are good things in your blood like oxygen and red blood cells. However, how do you separate the good from the bad? And the way you do that is by pumping blood into the Bowman's capsule. So it's almost like this car is driving really, really, really fast, and then when it hits the Bowman's capsule, it crashes the wall and it splatters, and anything smaller than the perforations in the glomerulus will come out of the blood. Now, is stuff that we want to keep coming out of the blood? Absolutely, but we're going to be able to put that stuff back in. But right now, we just kind of want, it's like putting a fist onto a hand, smacking in there, and getting material pushed out of the bloodstream. Once that happens, the fluid is in two different places and takes two different paths. If you notice the nephron here, there is the area that is yellow, and then there is the area that you can see where there's oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. So the material that is pushed out of the blood plasma in the glomerulus is then going to follow the path of the yellow tubules. Now the blood vessel that comes into it is also going to keep some stuff inside the blood vessel, and that's going to continue onto this artery, vein, sort of vascular tissue here, where it's going to go from oxygenated to deoxygenated. And really, so these two things are going on concurrently, is that you're basically splitting and subdividing the material in the blood so that some of it is going into the yellow tubules, and some of it is staying in the blood vessel itself. So the glomerulus is these structures here. The Bowman's capsule is the circular structure that houses the glomerulus. The distal convoluted tubule and the proximal convoluted tubule are areas on the yellow path that stuff filtrate that has come out of the blood vessels. And what does distant remind us of? Distal reminds us of distant. So the distal convoluted tubule is further away from the glomerulus, and the proximal convoluted tubule is right after the glomerulus. And basically, it's going to kind of squiggle a little bit, and it's going to do this big loop around the loop of Henle. Then it's going to come to the distal convoluted tubule, and then it's going to go to the collecting duct. And the whole point is to get that urea and that metabolic waste out of the blood, collected in the yellow tubules, and then funnel it to the collecting duct. Here are some terms that IB wants you to know. Ultrafiltration, so that's the process of that pumping heat, forcing fluid and materials out of the glomerulus across that semi-permeable fenestrated membrane into the nephron itself. So that's when some of the fluid is going to leave and go into those yellow tubules. Fenestrated just means perforated. The capillaries are elastic in nature. You can imagine there's a lot of pressure in that blood pressure pumping, and it actually can enlarge and reduce slightly, just like if you were to see a balloon expand and contract slightly with changing air pressure. And then the basement membrane is a thick layer of negatively charged tissue. Sorry about the typo there. Charged tissue, which helps keep negatively charged particles from crossing into the nephron. So basically, it's a container or a wrapper that allows this process to occur without outside interruption. Osmoregulation is controlling the flow of water balance in the body. And if you look at this picture over here, you can see a foot that's suffering from edema. So edema is swelling. It's when fluid pools in your body tissues. If you can imagine, you could be dehydrated, or you could have too much fluid, that your body actually continually has to regulate the amount of water that is in your blood and in your body tissue. And if there's too much water, the excess also is going to be excreted out through the kidneys. And if there's a dehydration situation occurring, then the kidney's actually going to trigger the retention of water, and less will come out of the urine, which is why your urine will look darker when you're dehydrated. So That ultrafiltration pushed the urea out of the blood plasma and into the tubules that are going to lead to the collecting duct. The problem is that it also pushed out water, glucose, and salts into the convoluted tubule, and those are things that we want to keep in the blood. So we actually have to get that stuff back, and that process is called reabsorption. Water and solutes have been removed, and they're going to go back in, and that involves some microvilli, which have a similar structure to the microvilli in the small intestine. Active transport and also osmosis are all going to play a role in the reabsorption of needed materials back into the blood plasma. You may be asked what the sequence of flow is. Well, first, everything is in the blood plasma. And then through ultrafiltration, stuff is pushed into the glomerular filtrate. And then after that, it goes into the urine, into the collecting duct. Let's talk about the loop of Henle. What number is the loop of Henle in this diagram? It's the big south-based curve, and it's number 4. And that's the area where reabsorption of water occurs. It's due to a concentration gradient, and it's assisted by the aid of a hormone called ADH, or antidiuretic hormone. And what you need to know is that if ADH increases, your body will reabsorb more water, and if it decreases, you're going to release more water in your urine. So this is part of that negative feedback loop, which helps maintain your homeostatic balance of osmoregulation of water balance. If you're diabetic, you have a compromised ability to pull blood sugar out of your blood. So you can imagine that during that ultrafiltration step, you're going to have more glucose being pushed out into the proximal convoluted tubule. So here's showing a diagram of different amounts of substances that are typically found in urine. And you can see down here, urea is the small yellow one, and the large yellow one, that it's a large portion of the urine. And then if you're diabetic, your glucose levels are going to go up, and you'll have excess glucose, which can be detected in the urine.